All right, so let's start with the big story that we are tracking on WION at this hour. The British Navy is facing a big problem. Its ships can't seem to leave the dock. Aircraft carriers are breaking down and there is an acute shortage of personnel. And now a British nuclear submarine missile launch has failed as a Trident missile has misfired and has fallen into the sea. Now, this is extremely worrying not only for the United Kingdom, but also a big concern for its allies such as the United States. Because remember, this is a big chink in the British armour at a time when Russia is continuing to pound Ukraine, and the United Kingdom needs to guard the waters as threats emerge ranging from the Houthis to potentially even the Chinese. Our next report tells you as to what actually ails the British Navy at the moment.
The Royal Navy, whose once mighty fleet of ships ruled the oceans, to help the British Empire extend its reach around the globe. Today, it struggles with having become a pale shadow of its former self. In yet another embarrassment, Britain's Trident nuclear deterrent system misfired during a test last month. The Sun newspaper reported that the missile crashed into the Florida coast near the submarine that launched it. The Trident test fiasco itself is just the tip of the iceberg. Royal Navy ships are breaking down mid-voyage. In 2020, aircraft carrier HMS Prince of Wales suffered a devastating flooding incident. Earlier this month, the $3.7 billion HMS Queen Elizabeth had to pull out of the largest NATO naval exercises since the Cold War. The reason? A problem in the propeller exposing vulnerabilities in one of the crown jewels of the fleet. These equipment failures are compounded by a critical shortage of personnel. In 2022, the Navy admitted being 7,000 sailors short of its target strength, leading to over-restricted crews and strained operations. So much so that the Royal Navy had to decommission 2 warships for lack of staff. The desperate need to find talent even led to an unprecedented move in December 2023. A high-ranking Rear Admiral position was advertised on LinkedIn. Last month in the Red Sea, Houthis attacked an oil tanker with links to the UK. The fire was successfully put out by the Indian Navy's INS Visakhapatnam. Defence sources in the UK claimed that Royal Navy ships could not help because they lacked surface-to-surface missiles. There are many such problems. So what led to this decline? Budget cuts, post-Cold War complacency and an over-reliance on outdated technology have all played their part. A weakened navy undermines Britain's global reach and influence, impacting trade, security and international partnerships. Clearly, Britain's image as a proud maritime power with the Navy as its cornerstone lies tattered. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective, we're being joined by Dr. Gilbert Doctorow, who's in fact an international affairs expert and also an author and a historian. He's joining us live from Brussels. Now, Dr. Doctorow, thank you very much indeed, sir, for joining us on this broadcast. And this incident that has happened where a Trident missile test, which is a nuclear-capable missile that was tried by the British Navy, which has failed, and it has happened for the second time in the last 8 years. How concerning should this be to the British military establishment?
Well, it definitely should be concerning to them, but it's part of an overall problem that your previous speaker has set out very, very well. I subscribe to most everything that he was saying. Britain has lost its empire. You and India know that best of all. Britain has lost its ground forces capability, which are sharply reduced. And as you were now describing, Britain is in the process of losing what remains of its naval capabilities. But that has to be put in the context of the changing nature of warfare. Gunboat diplomacy today is not what gunboat diplomacy was in the Reagan years. You can't just take in an aircraft carrier fleet and rule a regional conflict. You can't. the availability of modern technologies, particularly these small, inexpensive attack missiles and drones, has changed the nature of warfare. But I'd like to bring in one other fact, which bears heavily on what you're describing, and that is the connection between what is going on in West Asia, precisely in the Red Sea, and what is going on in Ukraine. These two wars are directly linked, especially in the last week. The attack on a Qatari oil tanker, which forced the crew to abandon ship, and this attack, an attack yesterday on a British vessel in the Red Sea, highlight an enhanced capability that the Houthis happen to have, which isn't coming from nowhere. I would like to say just briefly that it's coming very possibly from Russia. 2 days ago, on the premier Russian talk show, which may be considered to be an unofficial voice of the Kremlin, the remark was made that two can play proxy war. The West is playing proxy war against Russia, and now Russia is about to play proxy war against Britain. Britain is the leading attack dog in the West's quiet war with Russia.
All right. Now,
and the British Navy is at risk.
Dr. Doctorov, just to go back to this issue of the Trident missile test, which is a nuclear-capable missile that just did not even take off because the missile apparently fell a bit of a distance away from the submarine from where it was launched. Now, this has got to be a core part of Britain's nuclear deterrence. The fact that this missile test has failed twice, what does it say about Britain's nuclear deterrence?
Well, let us say that Britain has a nuclear deterrent. I wouldn't despair of its overall capabilities of launching a missile when it has to. Nonetheless,
but it has failed twice in the last 8 years on both occasions that it has tried to test this missile.
Well, if Britain doesn't watch its step, it may watch a nuclear submarine simply disappear. Not because of a failure, technical failure on the British side, but because the game it is playing now with Russia. The Russians have spoken 6 months ago or more about their ability to sink one of these wonderful submarines at any time of their choosing. But of course, that risks setting off World War III. Now we have a new angle to this game. It's called proxy war. And if the Russians use the Houthis, we may find one of those nuclear carrying submarines disappear not for mechanical failure, but under attack.
All right. All right, very interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Doctorov, for joining us and getting us that perspective there.
My pleasure.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.